Republic of Ireland, an EU country and distinctly separate from Northern Ireland, which is covered in my other video, boasts an astonishing coastline and incredibly rich heritage. While I was living in Northern Ireland, I had a few visitors from Canada, my friend Laurel, my mom, and her friend Carol. Knowing that I would be returning home shortly myself, I embarked on 2 huge road trips to ensure that no adventure was left undone. Also, making sure to redo some of the absolute highlights from my previous trip. 45 minutes north of Dublin, you'll find Newgrange, which is a prehistoric monument from 3200 BC, which means it's older than the pyramids and even Stonehenge. Through various excavations, they found human remains and artifacts. Uniquely, on the days of the winter solstice, which is usually December 21st, the morning sun shines through the entryway, illuminating the passageway. And some of the stones were from as far away as Wicklow, which is 110 kilometers south. There is also numerous legends about the magical properties of the burial site, notably involving its ability to produce endless amounts of food and drink. As time would go on, monks would farm the nearby fields. There's a couple other things up here that you need to see as well. The first is Mellifon Abbey, to roam the ruins. Built in 1142, it once housed up to 100 monks and another 300 lay brothers. It became the template for other abbeys of its kind to be built in Ireland. But more importantly, don't miss the Monaster Boys' high crosses. From roughly the 10th century, the crosses were used for a variety of purposes, like worship or to mark out areas of sanctuary around a church. This particular location features the greatest of all high crosses in the country. They are inscribed with biblical themes and are believed to have been originally painted. They were never intended to be markers for graves. Before heading back to Dublin, it is possible to detour slightly west to check out Trim Castle, but skip it if you're heading to better ones like Blarney later on. I used to have this really nasty habit of wanting to do 100% completion for all attractions on a trip, and it was mind-numbing. Choose 2 or 3 of the best castles and the best churches each, and find other creative things to see instead. Being the tourist hub for the entire country, Dublin has some of the best highlights. My personal favorite was the prestigious Trinity College. Not only does it have a copy of the Sphere Within a Sphere bronze sculpture that you'll also find at the Vatican in Italy, but it features an Indiana Jones-esque traditional library as well as the Book of Kells. Now, seeing the Book of Kells in the library is a journey unto itself. You'll definitely need to buy an entry ticket and be prepared to wait in a mighty long line, likely outside in the rain. Created in the 9th century, it contains the 4 Gospels of the New Testament, illuminated in elaborate visual detail. You don't want to miss it. It was time to liven things up a bit, but I wasn't prepared for just how elaborate the tour of the Guinness Storehouse was going to be. I'm not even a huge beer drinker, but considering the stuff was invented here back in 1759, I couldn't miss it. Plus, they had samplings of limited edition brews found nowhere else in the world. I had originally budgeted about half an hour for a quick visit, but wound up joining for the, and get this, 3-hour tour. Kilmainham Jail was just like the one in Belfast, but on a much larger scale. It housed many Irish revolutionaries that were executed by the UK. Most cells only had a single candle for heat, and men, women, and children were mixed together, some children as young as 7. It was well known for its dangerously deplorable conditions. Temple Bar had me really confused when I first arrived. It's actually the name for the entire neighborhood, not just a particular bar. It's teeming with tourists and locals and offers a huge diversity of multi-ethnic foods, as well as local Irish cuisine and live music. It would be really easy for me to talk for an hour about Dublin, but there's a couple other essentials, and those are the National Gallery of Ireland, the National Museum of Ireland, the archaeology version, St. Patrick's Cathedral, Dublin Castle, Brazenhead, which is the oldest pub in Dublin, Epic, the Irish Emigration Museum, and the National Leprechaun Museum of Ireland for a splash of comedic relief. The Kilruttery House and Gardens, only 30 minutes south of Dublin, are a calmer afternoon escape with their elaborate gardens complete with ponds and sculptures, not to mention their high-class tea room. Heading south, the 6th century monastic city at Glendalough was much more my jam. Aside from wandering around the ruins of the cathedral, try throwing your arms around St. Kevin's Cross. Legend has it that anyone who can stand behind it and wrap their arms around the entire front with fingertips touching will have their wishes granted. The whole area is well known for being one of the top picnic spots in all of Ireland, presuming, of course, you know how to dress for the weather. A couple of minutes from the ruins are the lead mines, which harvested lead, zinc, and silver in the 1790s. At its peak, over 2,000 miners were employed, and it was open right up until 1957. As you make your way southeast towards Blarney, stop at the Irish National Stud and Gardens if you're a racehorse fanatic. Carol was in love. She could have easily spent all day there and been just as content. Invincible Spirit, a famous racehorse, boards there, and his stallion fee for breeding has been as high as 100,000 euros. That's absolutely unreal. Other quick and fun stops en route are the Rock of Dunamas, the mysterious and unexcavated Browns Hill portal tomb, built around 3000 BC, Kilkenny Castle, King of the Vikings, the Titanic experience, and of course the treasures and crystal in Waterford. I joined a local hiking group and spent a few days in Cashel, right at the foot of the Tipperary mountain ranges. Cashel is famous as being the seat of the Kings of Munster. Legend has it that the site was born from a stray rock during a fight that St. Patrick had with Satan in a cave at Devil's Bit. My mom at this point made sure to remind me of some classic Irish songs that were sung to her as a child, like It's a Long Way to Tipperary. It felt, in some ways, magical to be in a country where my distant ancestors roamed the hills, and now here, I was, doing the same. The most legendary hike that I did with the group was Knockdown. It's only 10.5 kilometers, but with the pace of the group, it took us a solid 6 hours. It wasn't particularly steep or cold, but the wind was howling and the clouds continually hid the route during our ascent. At the top, the classic checkerboard-like Irish farmland lay below. The mountains were almost entirely bare, courtesy of heavy logging in the Middle Ages, so the views, they were panoramic. But we were there to adventure, right? We descended down a create-your-own-adventure route through the knee-high scratchy heather and ankle-deep soggy bog, just like a typical Irish hike. If you're only going to do one castle in all of Ireland, Blarney should be it. Arrive early morning before the crowds and beeline it to the Blarney Stone so you don't get caught in an hour-long line. Climb to the top is via some rather precarious steep steps, but it's suitable for most. When it's your turn to kiss the stone, you lay on your back and a guide will inch you backwards down the wall for your photo op and smooch. And then, congratulations, you now have the gift of the gab. Contrary to popular local rumor, they don't pee on the Blarney Stone after hours. What was really cool was the poison garden. It's a small gated area of the grounds where the keepers would intentionally keep poisonous plants to educate or use as ancient herbal remedies. Today, it includes poisonous plants from all around the world. Afterwards, take a stroll through the gardens at the rock close for a magical escape, including waterfalls and rocks native for witches and druids. Blarney is also famous for its woolen mills and Cork for its English market, but if you're not in a shopping mood, head straight to Cork for the Shandon Bells and Tower at St. Anne's Church. As a tourist, you can go up the bell tower and pull ropes to swing the 8 bells to various tunes that are hung on the wall. Now that was a powerful feeling. Prepare to embark on a journey as you drive the Ring of Kerry. It's one of my favorite destinations in all of Ireland, and it has a level of tourism to validate that impression as well. Use Killarney as your starting point and have a luxurious dinner at the Great Southern. Just make sure you pack some dress clothes. The next day, after doing the Macross House tour, take a carriage ride for a view of the bay and gardens, and begin your drive counterclockwise. Ross Castle, it's easily skipped. There are a ton of potential stops along the way. I was pulling over every 15 minutes for another photo op or a short excursion. I would highly suggest taking at least 2 or 3 days to fully enjoy the circuit. On the south, there's the Torque Waterfall. There's Mall's Gap, the Stagstone Ford, the Derrynane House, amongst many seaside viewpoints. I would have loved to have taken a charter out to Skellig Michael, which is house to an ancient monastery and was also the filming location for Star Wars. But with the weather as it is, and also tourism, it's really hard to get a booking. Either way, take a stroll at the stunning Kerry Cliffs. It's possible to see the island from afar. The Kerry Cliffs put the Cliffs of Moher to shame with their beauty. Hang out there for a while. Valentia Island was an unexpected but worthwhile stop for nature photography as well, although there aren't many facilities on the island itself. Back on the north side of Kerry, don't miss the Kells Bay House, their gardens, and the beach before heading on a second loop through the Dingle Peninsula. Dingle, the peninsula just north of Kerry, is very much more of a scenic drive than it is a place for a specific tourist stop. It will take a lot less time than traveling the Ring of Kerry. Some of my favorite stops were Inch Beach, the East Tower, and... okay, I'm gonna say this one wrong because it's in Gaelic and I couldn't find a pronunciation key anywhere. But Cumino Beach. It was absolutely gorgeous. So was Connor Pass and the viewpoint at Cloaker Strand. One of the eeriest experiences on Dingle was visiting the Famine Cottages, where it's possible to see the living conditions of what it would have been like during the famine. There are the creepiest, zombie-esque mannequins decorating the place. They'll haunt your dreams as you fall asleep that night. I was half expecting one of them to come to life. As we continued on, my mom also added a few bonus stops to the list to absorb the energy of the past. Heading north, Adair Manor is a lavish place to grab lunch, or for the elite, also serves as a 5-star hotel and golf resort. Limerick has your typical attractions like King John's Castle, St. John's Square and Cathedral, art galleries, museums, and abbeys. Honestly, it's not worth the drive from Dublin if it weren't for the other nearby attractions like Bunratty Castle and Folk Park. It's one of the most complete and authentic castles in Ireland, which was built in 1425 and then recently restored in the mid-1900s. Its historic living village features a school, post office, doctor's house, hardware shop, and pub. Comparable to Barkerville for anyone who's been to British Columbia, Canada, indulge in a medieval banquet for a full dinner experience with dancing and music. Just over an hour northwest of Limerick are the famous 200-meter tall cliffs of Moher, which are featured in The Princess Bride. I'm not quite sure where my fascination with these cliffs began, but somehow they worked their way into being a fantasy destination of mine where I always thought I would get married one day. That was until I saw the Kerry Cliffs or the Gardens of Ninfa in Italy. Alwee Cave en route to Galway is a cute stop if you've never done a cave tour before, but the mounds of peat that began to line the roadside as we began to drive farther north really caught our attention. It's a combination of moss and other plant matter that was used as a replacement for coal. It even provided 40% of Ireland's power in the 1960s. My mum broke out into tune as we entered Galway and we played classic folk tunes on YouTube. We were on a race against the clock as the sun was setting and we couldn't miss seeing the sun go down on Galway Bay at Salt Hill. Nimmo's Pier was quaint and reminded me of my trip to Halifax, but then again, to my mom every town we entered was cute and quaint, and honestly she wasn't wrong. Their big stops in Galway were the shopping district at the Latin Quarter and Quay Street, and then the Connemara Marble Shop up the road. This exclusive type of marble was formed in the sediment of the adjacent sea over 600 million years ago. Our second to last stop, and one thing I had been dying to see based on photos I saw online, was Kylemore Abbey. It's a hell of a detour, literally the opposite side of the country from Dublin. Mind you, that's only a 3.5-hour drive. It's a Benedictine monastery built recently in the 1920s for Belgian nuns who fled the country during World War I. The unique Victorian-style architecture makes it look more like a Lego castle or something out of a children's fairy tale. It also features a stunning walled garden. We wrapped up our final days in Ireland with a stop at Sean's Bar in Athlone. It was built in 900 AD, which easily makes it the oldest bar in the country and likely the entire world. But you'd never guess that from the contemporary exterior. Inside, cuddle up by the medieval-feeling wood-burning fireplace with some of their 900 AD beer, or Sean's Brew, and reminisce about the journey.